At 38, Claire had already lost almost everything. Then a probate lawyer called with unexpected news. Someone had left her $1. What she discovered the next day would change everything. If stories like this pull at something deep in you, subscribe. Claire's childhood was stitched together with silence and shadows. The small house she grew up in always smelled faintly of bleach. Her mother scrubbing away the exhaustion of night shifts at the hospital. The refrigerator hummed louder than the voices inside. Most nights it held only a carton of milk and a half-empty jar of peanut butter. At 6, she learned the sound of absence, the slam of the front door when her father left and never returned. She grew up watching other children run home to warm dinners, while she walked alone under skies that shifted from pale blue to bruised gray. Her shoes often soaked through from puddles, the cold pressing against her toes. She carried loneliness like a second skin. Teachers praised her quietness, mistaking it for discipline, never seeing the ache behind her silence. By 18, grief had carved deep lines into her spirit. Her mother's sudden illness left Claire standing in a sterile hospital room, the smell of disinfectant burning her nose, her chest tight as machines clicked and beeped. When her mother passed, Claire was left with debts she didn't understand and a stack of unpaid bills folded into a cracked envelope. Marriage seemed like a lifeline. She clung to it with trembling hands, believing love could erase the hunger of her past. But her husband's laughter grew sharp, his words slicing into her like broken glass. Arguments filled the air with the smell of whiskey and slammed doors. When the divorce came, she signed the papers with a pen that shook, her tears smudging the ink. She left with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and a single photo of her daughter pressed against her chest. The world had taken almost everything from her, and yet somewhere deep inside she carried a fragile ember of hope waiting for something, anything, to prove she hadn't been forgotten. Claire's survival was stitched together from fragments of endurance. She worked long shifts at the diner, the smell of frying oil clinging to her clothes, her shoes squeaking against greasy tiles. At night she folded herself onto a friend's couch, the springs pressing into her back, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Each morning she rose before dawn, her chest heavy, her hands raw from scrubbing apartments no one wanted to live in. Rain seemed to follow her. She walked through it often, her socks soaked, the cold biting through thin shoes. She carried an envelope of crumpled bills in her bag, each coin counted, each dollar folded tightly. When hunger gnawed, she drank water until the ache dulled, yet she kept moving. She cleaned, she served, she endured. She whispered promises to herself in the quiet, "I will not disappear." Sometimes she found herself staring at abandoned buildings she cleaned, their walls cracked, their air thick with mildew. She imagined sleeping there, imagined claiming space no one else wanted. The silence of those places felt alive, as if secrets lingered in the dust. Her resilience was not loud. It was quiet, steady survival carved into every breath. 2 weeks after another long shift at the diner, Claire found a thick envelope waiting in her mailbox. The paper was heavier than usual, its edges yellowed, carrying the faint smell of dust and old ink. Her hands trembled as she tore it open, the sound of the paper ripping echoing in the quiet hallway. Inside was a letter from a probate attorney. The words were formal, cold, and deliberate. She had been named in a will. Her inheritance $1. Claire stared at the page, her chest tightening, the ink blurring as her eyes filled. $1. It felt like mockery, a cruel joke carved into legal language. Her siblings laughed when they heard. "Even the lawyer thinks it's worthless," her brother sneered. Neighbors whispered, shaking their heads. But something about the letter unsettled her. The attorney's tone carried hesitation, as though something was being left unsaid. He mentioned a property and estate outside town, long abandoned. Claire folded the letter carefully, her fingers brushing against the embossed seal. The silence in the room grew heavy, pressing against her ears. She couldn't explain why, but the single dollar felt like a doorway, a test, a secret waiting to be uncovered. When Claire first heard the words estate outside town, she imagined a crumbling shack or a patch of land swallowed by weeds. The lawyer's tone was dismissive, almost embarrassed, as though reading a punchline rather than a gift. Her siblings smirked, shaking their heads. "It's worthless," her brother muttered, his voice sharp with satisfaction. The property had been abandoned for decades. Locals whispered about its decay, about the roof sagging under years of rain, about windows boarded up, and vines twisting like veins across the walls. To most, it was nothing but a burden, a forgotten place better left to rot. Claire folded the letter again, her fingers brushing against the embossed seal. The paper smelled faintly of mildew, as though it had been stored in a drawer untouched for years. She felt the weight of everyone's laughter pressing against her chest, but beneath it a flicker of curiosity stirred. $1, one estate, one chance. She imagined the gates rusted shut, the silence heavy, the air thick with secrets. Everyone else saw ruin, but Claire, standing in the emptiness of her life, saw possibility. Even a worthless inheritance was more than she had, and something inside whispered, "Look closer." The lawyer's car slowed as the road narrowed into a tunnel of trees. Branches clawed at the sky, their silhouettes black against a heavy gray horizon. Rain had stopped, but the air still carried the damp smell of earth and moss. Claire pressed her forehead to the window, her chest tight, her breath shallow. The gates appeared suddenly iron, twisted with rust, vines curling through the bars like veins. They creaked open with a sound that echoed like a groan from the past. Claire stepped out, her shoes sinking into wet soil, the cold seeping through the soles. Silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the distant caw of a crow. The estate loomed ahead. Its walls were scarred, paint peeled into flakes that clung stubbornly to rotting wood. Windows stared back at her, dark and hollow, like eyes that had seen too much. The air smelled of mildew and forgotten time. She touched the gate, the iron cold against her palm. A shiver ran through her spine. The lawyer's voice was low, almost reverent. "It's yours." Claire's fingers tightened around the letter in her pocket. The house felt alive, waiting. Every step toward it carried weight, as though secrets were buried beneath the soil, whispering for her to uncover them. The house groaned as Claire stepped inside, the air thick with mildew and silence. Dust swirled in the faint light that slipped through cracked shutters. Her shoes pressed against warped floorboards, each creak echoing like a warning. Then something different. One step rang hollow, the sound sharper, emptier, as though the ground beneath her was not solid. She crouched, her fingers brushing against the wood. It was softer here, warm, smooth by time. The smell of damp earth rose faintly from the gap. Her chest tightened, breath shallow. She pressed harder, and the board shifted. Beneath it, hidden in the darkness, was a small tin box. Its surface was rusted, edges jagged, but it carried weight. She lifted it carefully, the cold metal biting into her palms. The lawyer's eyes widened. Inside, folded letters. Ink faded, paper brittle, her mother's handwriting. Secrets waiting, whispering from the past. Claire's fingers trembled as she unfolded the brittle letters from the tin box. Each page carried her mother's handwriting, ink faded, words heavy with secrets. They spoke of debts, of hidden accounts, of something buried within the estate itself. Her chest tightened, the smell of old paper sharp in the damp air. Driven by unease, she searched further. A panel in the wall shifted under her touch, revealing a locked chest. The lawyer's hands shook as he pried it open. Inside lay land deeds, maps, and bank records, documents that whispered of ownership far greater than anyone imagined. Claire's breath caught. The estate wasn't just a ruin. It was tied to mineral rights, vast parcels of land, and wealth deliberately concealed. Each discovery raised more questions. Who had hidden this? Why had her siblings laughed? The silence of the house grew heavier, as though it had been waiting for her to listen. Moments like this are why inheritance stories can be so powerful. If you enjoy uncovering hidden legacies and unexpected secrets like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss future stories. The courtroom air was tense, the smell of polished wood and old paper heavy around Claire. Her siblings sat rigid, their eyes sharp, waiting for the judge's words. The lawyer laid out the documents one by one, land deeds, mineral rights, maps that stretched far beyond the crumbling estate. Claire's breath caught. The estate wasn't worthless. Beneath its soil lay mineral deposits, rights worth millions, concealed for decades. The $1 inheritance had been a mask, a decoy to mislead greedy hands. Her mother's letters confirmed it. The estate was meant for Claire alone. Gasps rippled through the room. Her siblings' faces drained of color, their laughter silenced. Claire's chest tightened, her fingers brushing the fragile paper that carried her mother's handwriting. The truth was undeniable. The forgotten estate was not ruin, it was legacy, wealth, and justice hidden in plain sight. And now it belonged to her. The courtroom felt heavy, the air thick with tension, and the faint scent of polished wood. Claire sat quietly, her hands folded around the fragile letters she had uncovered. Her mother's handwriting pressed against her palms like a shield. Across the aisle, her siblings shifted restlessly, their faces pale, their voices sharp with desperation. They argued, their words echoing through the chamber, trying to twist the truth, to claim what was never theirs. The judge listened, his gavel resting firmly in hand. When the lawyer presented the deeds and letters, the silence was absolute. The truth was undeniable. The estate, the mineral rights, the legacy, it all belonged to Claire. The gavel struck, the sound sharp and final. Her siblings' protests dissolved into the hollow air. Justice had been spoken. Claire's chest loosened, her breath steady. For the first time in years, she felt the weight lift. The estate was hers. The fight was over. Weeks after the final ruling, Claire returned to the estate. The sky was clear, washed in soft gold, the air crisp with the scent of new beginnings. She walked slowly through the gates, her daughter's small hand tucked into hers. The house no longer felt like ruin, it felt like possibility. She began restoring the estate, each brush of paint and hammer strike carrying the weight of survival turned into renewal. Rooms once filled with dust now echoed with laughter. She opened the doors to families in need, offering shelter where silence once lived. The land, rich with mineral rights, gave her financial freedom, but it was the transformation of the space that mattered most. Claire's chest no longer carried the tightness of despair. Instead, it carried hope. The place that had been dismissed as worthless became her sanctuary, her legacy, and the proof that forgotten things can hold the greatest truths. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the most forgotten places hide the greatest truths. If you enjoy emotional stories about hidden legacies and unexpected second chances, consider subscribing for more stories like this.